Hello, everyone. This is Group 10's presentation for our database. My name is Ferrer, and be giving you an introduction, a background, and showing you the ERD model of our whole entire database to get you grounded of what we were going for our semester project. Then my teammates are going to be talking about a little bit of our assignments and giving into this final presentation. Additionally, ending us off with our lessons learned throughout the semester. So let me get started. When I was when we were thinking about how to approach this database assignment in this final project, I wanted to bring up the problem that I'm having with our ROTC detachment currently. We have a large amount of spreadsheets, like we talked about earlier in the semester, that are ineffective on trying to communicate with each other and being able to uh, keep everything in one place like a database would be highly optimal towards the efficiency for ROTC. I am myself is in charge of the attendance along with the objectives that cadets need to take in order to graduate ROTC and become an Air Force officer. With these 200 plus cadets, they are listed into names and have to complete training weeks and be present specifically with the nuances of everything. Additionally, obtaining objectives or completing objectives with such an example of trying to find the chain of command from the POTUS all the way to myself as a cadet to holding a flag along with our PT days at 4 a.m., which nowadays are pretty cold and grueling. So let me go and show you how we transferred both of these spreadsheets into our database through our ERD model. Cool. So our ERD model is consistent of 5 tables, all surrounding the cadet table, trying to fan out this cadet usage. Now that we're in the subject, I could talk to you about cadet with our primary ID as our student ID with our numerical value, first and last name, the class that is associated with that cadet, first year, second year, third year, fourth year, and their classification. Now with each cadet, there's a grouping of cadets in one flight and multiple flights, in which each flight, which is usually distinguished with Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and so forth, there's a count, the amount of cadets that dropped out of the program, and then our first year count, second year, how many cadets are third year or fourth year. Next up, we could talk about the objectives table with our student ID being our foreign key. Then in our SOB or sample behavior objectives, modeled like 12.1 or 5.2 type of stuff with our int. Um, of course, the classification requirements. So underclassmen learn something different from upperclassmen. For instance, a cadet in the upperclassman needs to teach how to fold a flag, while an underclassman actually has to perform folding a flag. And then the specific training type that objective is attached to, whether or not it's an educational or a physical type of training type. Because there are objectives like you have to complete 50 push ups in a minute in order to complete this objective, that type of stuff. Next up, we have training weeks. Training weeks has of course, the physical and educational with these 14 training weeks in a semester. The dates that have the week start and the week end, along with the foreign keys. Then lastly, our attendance that brings us all together. Of course, the attendance is tracking our true or false, whether or not they were present or not, and then whether or not that present or absent is attached to a PT or an educational training day. This is important because a cadet cannot achieve an objective if they were absent for that specific physical training event or their or educational training event, and they would have to complete it in the future. Okay, that's it for my part. Let me give you my teammates examples of what they worked on.
Hello, my name is Jeffery Cordes. I was on Group 10 for this database systems project. I will be demonstrating our join query and then our trigger. So I'd like to start out by showing you this cadet table. We have cadets 1 through 40. Notice they each have their own assigned flight name in this rightmost column. And there is also our flight table. where we have the 6 flights given their own record. And when we join them, we join those 2 flight columns on those 2 tables. And here we are, we have the student ID and their names followed by their flight name, and it groups by flight name too. So first we have the Alphas, Bravos, Charlies, Deltas, Echoes, and finally the Foxtrots. So that's our join, and then for our trigger, we added an insertion trigger for an after insert on the cadet table, where the flight count in the flight table increments by 1 when we insert a cadet into a certain flight. So when we insert this cadet named Josh Groveland with ID number 41 into the Alpha flight, if we look at the flight real quick, actually, we see that there are currently 10 people in the Alpha flight. So if we insert another one, and then we look at the cadet table, we can see that there are now 41 cadets. And then if we look at the flight table, we can see that there are 11 Alpha cadets.
Hi, my name is Antonio Maldonado, and I'll be demonstrating a subquery, which essentially links 2 tables together without using a join clause. The use case of this query would be to output all the cadets within a specific flight, in this case, Alpha. The tables we will be working with contain the data from the cadet table and the training weeks table. To start off, we select column student ID, first name, and lastly flight name from the cadet table. Then we add in a condition, student ID, which is compared to cadet student ID from the training weeks table, where there is another condition to where the flight name has to be equal to Alpha. As a result, when executed, the query should output a table containing all the cadets from the Alpha flight. And as we execute the query, we get a table containing all the cadets that are in the flight Alpha. And this is my demonstration. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Beserra, and I worked with Group 10 to complete this project. So today I will be demoing 2 things to you. I will be demoing the view and a procedure that were created for our project to help us track parts of our database. So the first view that I'm going to show you is the objective progress view. And this view is meant to go through and find a student ID and look at this student and see if they completed an objective and how far they need to go. So first off, we start by dropping the view if it already exists. Then after we checked if the view is already existing, we create it, and it's called objective progress. After we create it, we select the student ID, the student first name, the student last name, the actual objective number, and then whether the objective is completed or not. So let's see what this actually does. So here, as you can see, we have the student ID, student first name, student last name, the actual objective, and whether it is completed or not. So here we have 1s and 2s. So 1s mean that it's completed, 2 means that it's not related to their grade level and that they have either already completed it or they are going to complete it at a different date. If they have 0, that means they haven't completed it. So like this person right here, number 10, is in the grade level for this, but he has not completed it yet. And so he's either have to complete it in this grade level or at a different time. And as you can see, the view shows up here also. So the second part I'm going to show is a procedure, and this procedure is called data on flight. And this whole procedure is just to get data on the expenses of a certain flight. So we use the delimiter right here, and then we're going to create the procedure, and we are taking in the flight name, and we're actually going to output the name of the flight, the number of cadets in the flight, and then an estimated amount of expenses. To be on the safe side, we said that for each cadet, there would probably be about $800 spent. And this number could be swapped up depending on how much a flight would be estimated to spend. So after that, after we've created this procedure, we can go ahead and call it. And for this first example, I'm going to be looking at our first flight, Alpha, and it's going to show us the number of flight, the number of cadets in the flight, and how much they're estimated to spend. So here it is right here. It is Alpha, 8 cadets in the flight, and because there's 8 cadets at 800 each, it would be an estimated 6,400. So we could also go ahead and show this again, and it works with any of the flight names that actually exist. Like, let's do Bravo, which would be the next. And with this one, we have 6 cadets in the flight, and there would be an estimated 4,800.
My name is Timothy Armstrong. I'm part of Group 10, and one of my main contributions to this project was learning how to apply cursor. What my code here essentially does is iterate through the cadet list, and it finds cadets whose class equals ASC 300, and it promotes them to ASC 400, which is all done here. Over here, cur class is declared, and it selects from the student class column. Next, it loops through searching for any instance where the class equals ASC 300, and simply changes it to ASC 400. It also creates a list that will be displayed afterwards of every student class. Once the loop runs, we will run it with this. It shows the student class for every cadet, and every instance where it would be ASC 300 is now ASC 400.
Hello, we are Group 10, and this is a section based on what we have learned. I would like to introduce myself. I am Jose Hernandez, and throughout this project, I have contributed by giving my input and ideas to the group to help them implement information from the UTSA ROTC's program into an ERD model and help deliver the final product. I also oversaw getting this video together and making sure everything was discussed and all grading criteria were met. For this section, I have gathered information and asked everyone to tell me a little bit about what they have learned over the course of working on this project. Our first member is Tim Armstrong. He states that the main thing I've learned on this project was how to use cursor to iterate through data. I also gained insight on working with shared spreadsheets and incorporated them into a database such as MySQL. Our next member we have is Amber Beserra. She says that having organized information for a database is extremely important because as a group, we had to reorganize our data before we could push it into the schema. Our next group member is Jefferey Cordes. He says that for this project, I've learned about good database architecture principles and how complex and intricate database systems can really be. Our next member we have is Ferrer. He says that I've learned how to use real-world attributes and translate data to our ERD model. Additionally, I learned how to gather information through given queries in our database. Next, we have Antonio Maldonado. He says that he learned multiple different things from working on his projects. Those lessons include how to create a schema from an ERD, how key values can manipulate data for each other, how to successfully transfer data into the database, using queries, procedures, triggers to manipulate data. And last but not least, we have me, Jose Hernandez. And what I have learned during this project is that incorporating a database from Excel into a database using MySQL is no easy task. There are many challenges, but as a team, we pushed through and solved it together. I also learned why it is important to make sure that all information that is being used within a database has some sort of significance and correlation with each other. This concludes Group 10's final project. Thank you for watching, and we hope you enjoyed.